Welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to unpack the hidden mechanics behind the world's absolute most successful companies. Think about any modern organization, right? It's kind of like a high-end computer. You've got the technology, the financial capital, the physical offices. That's all just the hardware. But the software, the actual operating system that coordinates all those complex moving parts and brings them to life, well, that is human behavior. You can buy the most advanced tech out there, build the sleekest products, but without the right software running the whole shebang, your hardware is essentially useless. So today, we are decoding that software. Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever wondered why two companies in the exact same industry, with the exact same access to capital, and literally identical technology can have vastly different outcomes? Like one absolutely thrives and completely dominates the market, while the other just kind of slowly collapses? The hardware is identical, right? So what gives? The difference entirely comes down to the people. It comes down to how those specific individuals think, feel, and interact when they are under pressure. So here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll look at the human element. Second, why behavior matters. Third, we'll cover the manager's 3 roles. Fourth, the interdisciplinary DNA. And finally, number 5, real-world success. All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the human element. Hardware versus software. Listen, whether it's a massive multinational tech startup, a government department, or even just your local hospital, every single organization relies entirely on human coordination to actually function. And that brings us to organizational behavior, or OB. It's the systematic study of how individuals and groups behave within an organization, and crucially, how that behavior affects overall effectiveness. Now, I know that sounds like a dry textbook definition, but it's really not. It covers how we naturally respond to a crisis, our emotional intelligence, and our unique personal motivations. Because everyone is uniquely wired, understanding these complex patterns is absolutely critical for an organization to simply survive. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that this quote might sound like a total cliché. The kind of thing you'd find on a cheesy motivational poster in a break room. But it is a hard, empirical truth. We're operating in an era of rapid change and globalization. Even now, right in the middle of the age of artificial intelligence, a highly motivated, adaptable employee is still the ultimate differentiator. Because you can't just automate team trust, right? You can't code psychological safety with a few lines of Python. That requires deeply intentional design.
Moving right along to Section 2, why behavior matters. Upgrading the system. So, if human behavior really is the operating system, how do we actually go about upgrading it to meet the crazy challenges of the modern workplace? Well, applying these principles offers some massive, truly tangible benefits. For one, we can systematically enhance employee motivation, which, as we know, directly leads to better customer service and way higher productivity. We can also build psychological safety. This means people aren't terrified to fail, and let's be honest, that is where true, groundbreaking innovation actually happens. And crucially for today's world, it helps us adapt to AI and hybrid work by balancing all those remote collaboration tools with genuine, authentic human connection. Which brings us to Section 3, the manager's 3 roles. The programmers. Let's move to and see how this builds. So, who actually installs these upgrades? Well, if behavior is the software, managers are the programmers. Their job extends way beyond just, supervising tasks. They achieve organizational goals by working through other people. And to do this effectively, they essentially wear 3 very distinct hats: interpersonal, informational, and decisional. Let's look at that first hat. Interpersonal. This is where the manager steps up to act as a leader, a mentor, and a true culture builder. They aren't just barking orders from some corner office, they are out there building genuine relationships. They're the ones motivating the team, encouraging collaboration, and creating this positive, trusting work culture where people actually want to show up on a Monday morning and give it their absolute best effort. It's huge. Next up is the informational role. A massive part of a manager's job is acting almost like the nervous system of the organization. They are constantly collecting, analyzing, and sharing crucial data. Just think about how many completely avoidable workplace disasters happen simply because of poor communication or like one missing email, right? By ensuring accurate, timely information flows to exactly the right people, managers align the entire team and prevent those really costly misunderstandings. And the third hat is decisional. Here, the manager steps up to make the really tough strategic choices. They have to decide how to allocate scarce resources, they solve super complex organizational problems, they negotiate with stakeholders, and they manage change. Honestly, this role is where the pressure is at its absolute highest. And it's exactly where a deep, nuanced understanding of human behavior pays off massively in long-term business success.
All right, moving into Section 4, the interdisciplinary DNA, the source code.
Let's pull back the curtain on where all this managerial knowledge actually comes from. Organizational behavior isn't just one narrow, isolated subject. No, it's basically an Avengers-style team-up of the major social sciences, and this brilliantly illustrates that dynamic. On one side, we have psychology, which gives us the tools to understand the individual. You know what motivates them, how they learn, their emotional quirks. But, as we all know, people act very differently in groups than they do alone, and that's where sociology comes in, shifting the focus to workplace culture, teamwork, and those larger, complex social interactions.
When we map out how it all connects, you clearly see psychology for the individual and sociology for the group. But we also bring in anthropology. That one is vital for understanding cross-cultural values, especially in today's global teams. And finally, we use political science to understand power dynamics, authority, and, let's be totally honest here, how to navigate everyday office politics without losing your mind. Combining these four distinct disciplines gives managers an incredibly robust toolkit for literally any environment they find themselves in.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Real-World Success, Running the Ultimate OS. Look, all of this academic theory and source code is completely useless if it doesn't translate to the bottom line. We have all seen, or unfortunately perhaps even survived, a toxic workplace. When companies ignore the human element, poor communication and toxic leadership inevitably lead to plunging morale, massive turnover, and basically an organizational system crash. But flip that around to a thriving workplace. When you actively and intentionally manage human behavior, you get high well-being, continuous learning, and relentless innovation. The energy completely shifts from just surviving the work week to actually thriving. Just look at the most successful companies on the planet, giants like Google, Microsoft, TCS, and Infosys. So the crucial point is that they don't just pay lip service to this stuff. They systematically invest in leadership development and employee well-being. They know for a fact that in a hyper-competitive global market, a good business strategy just isn't enough on its own. Investing in your human software is, without a doubt, the ultimate sustainable competitive advantage.
We've covered the foundations, the manager's crucial roles, and the fascinating interdisciplinary science working behind the scenes. Now the theory becomes your reality. Knowing that human behavior is the operating system that ultimately determines a company's success or failure, I really want to leave you with a challenge. As a future leader, how will you take these practical tools and become the true architect of your own team's behavior? The hardware is sitting right there, waiting. It's time to write the code.